not going to spend a lot of time on it because there's a gazillion podcasts on John Gotti. But my first question to you, John Pennisi, is the post Gotti era of the debacle of the media getting involved. What, when you stepped into the life, what were kind of adjustments, rules, changes in the post Gotti era of the Italian mafia in New York City?
Oh, I mean, there was nothing in stone, but you know, like you always hear me say, we history is our biggest teacher. It teaches us, and I think with Johnny Gotti, he he was too flashy, he was too flamboyant. You know, uh, not when I came in, but when even before me, you've seen guys not wearing suits anymore, and they toned clothes down, a lot more casual. Um, Not the social clubs have all closed down. I mean, we had one and it closed down as well, but it 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 was mainly um, that whole flashiness and that guys. There were certain guys that still acted like that, but it was definitely toned down, and we toned ourselves down, and we tried not to. Most of us tried not to bring attention to ourselves when before that, you know, everyone knew. If you went to a restaurant and you looked, you knew who they were. You knew all those wise guys over there. When we could have probably blended in a lot better. So it was more of trying to blend in,
Interesting.
with everybody.
And I never.
Also,
Sorry.
the one thing that definitely changed was the the introduction um, changed. It was now in Italian, whereas years ago, guys were saying, this is a friend of ours, and this is, when the introduction changed to Amica Nostra. And my belief was that um, it came out too much. In the media, it came out in books, it came out in movies, and so that if you were introducing somebody and you were in a restaurant, you really don't want the people sitting next to you to know what you're saying in English. This is Tom. He's a friend of mine, or this is Tom. He's a friend of ours. They may know what we're doing, and so things like that changed.
Interesting. So we're gonna get more into the media and also social media, which I'm super interested to hear. But you talked about blending in, and I never asked you this privately, and I never asked you this on the podcast. As far as you knew in your family, your mother, your siblings, your cousins, your neighbor, the dog, whatever, when you got straightened out, did people kind of know? They knew you were connected. They knew you as a regular guy. What did the closest people know about John Pennisi post getting straightened out?
Um, I obviously didn't say
Yeah.
anything. Fortunately, there was a um, there was a guy who had just passed away, and he was a very low on the totem pole associate to the Gambinos, and it was Blaze Carrazzo who told him. And just for people that don't know, he's not supposed to tell an associate that I just got straightened out.
Correct.
And he did, because he's a Gacchiarone, he's got a big mouth, and and I'm not saying anything that other people don't know. And he told this particular guy, who in turn did worse, told my mother.
Yikes.
And yeah. And look, my mother grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, and knows everybody and their mother. And asked me if it was true and all of that. But I don't think anybody else really knew. I may have had ideas. People may have had ideas.
Yeah.
You said social media.
We're getting to social media in a
Yeah.
second, and the reason why people listen to this podcast is because of you, and you've been fully transparent. How does a conversation exactly go with your mother when she's like, "Listen, I heard, you're a mafioso. What, how does that conversation go?"
well, she told me what the guy said. And you know, my mother, it's funny, my mother, her reaction was, please be careful, because don't forget what she's been through with me. You know, I was away for 17 years, and it destroyed her. And, you know, so in her mind, that's not really what she wanted from me, obviously. And she was worried about me getting in trouble and going back in.
Got it. Now, we're gonna get to social media in a second. We talked about a little bit about after you got straightened out, all of a sudden the favors started coming. People want to borrow money from you. So obviously, somebody knew, right? It wasn't as much of a
Oh
secret.
no. Well, when I you got to remember something. These guys, in the street, people are gonna people are gonna talk, regardless of how low key you try to be, or you know, they're gonna talk, and it does start spreading around, and people start whispering and speaking.